Hey everyone, welcome back for another deep dive. We always try to find unique angles on interesting topics here, and today is no exception.
Yeah, this one is a little different, but that's what makes it so fun.
Absolutely. Our jumping off point today is a quote about anxiety. It says, "Anxiety is nothing more than enthusiasm poorly funneled."
I like that.
Yeah, it's a pretty provocative statement, right? We're going to unpack that idea and see what insights we can uncover about anxiety, about enthusiasm, and about how we can maybe shift our perspective on those feelings.
For sure. I'm excited to dive in.
All right, let's start with the quote itself. Anxiety is nothing more than enthusiasm poorly funneled. What are your initial thoughts on that?
Well, it's definitely an interesting way to think about anxiety. We typically see it as a negative thing.
Right, something to avoid or get rid of.
Exactly. But this quote suggests that maybe, just maybe, there's something more to it. Like maybe it's not the enemy we often make it out to be.
Okay, so let's break it down a little bit. What are we even talking about when we say anxiety?
Well, in simple terms, anxiety is that feeling of worry, nervousness, or unease. It's often associated with a sense of dread or apprehension about something in the future.
Right, like that feeling you get before a big presentation or a job interview.
Exactly. And physically, it can manifest as a racing heart, sweaty palms, shortness of breath, all those fun things.
Yeah, I think we've all been there.
Definitely. Now, on the other hand, we have enthusiasm, which is generally seen as a positive emotion.
Yeah, it's that feeling of excitement, eagerness, passion.
It's about feeling energized and motivated. And interestingly enough, enthusiasm can also manifest physically with similar symptoms to anxiety: increased heart rate, heightened energy.
So essentially what this quote is saying is that those two things, anxiety and enthusiasm, might actually be more closely related than we think.
Precisely. It's like they're two sides of the same coin.
Okay, I'm starting to see where this is going.
Now, the interesting part is this idea of funneling our emotions. It implies that we have some control over how these feelings manifest.
So if we're poorly funneling our enthusiasm, it comes out as anxiety.
Right. It's like we have this raw energy, this potential for intense emotion, but we're not directing it in a helpful way.
That's a really interesting way to look at it.
So the question then becomes, can we learn to better channel our enthusiasm so that it fuels us instead of overwhelming us?
Yeah, because I think we can all relate to those times when excitement turns into stress. Like planning a big trip can be super exciting, but then all the logistics and details start piling up and it can become overwhelming.
Exactly. Or, starting a new project can be filled with that initial burst of energy and inspiration. But then as deadlines loom and challenges arise, that excitement can easily morph into anxiety.
So how do we get better at this funneling thing? What are some practical tools or techniques we can use to make sure our enthusiasm stays on the right track?
Well, one of the most powerful tools is awareness. The more we understand our own emotional patterns, the better equipped we are to manage them.
So like noticing those early signs of anxiety and not letting them spiral out of control?
Exactly. And that's where mindfulness comes in. Taking the time to observe our thoughts and feelings without judgment can help us create some space between ourselves and those intense emotions.
And from there, we can start to shift our perspective.
Precisely. Cognitive reframing is a powerful technique for doing just that. It's about consciously challenging those negative thought patterns and replacing them with more balanced ones.
So instead of thinking, oh my gosh, I can't handle this, I'm going to fail, we might try to reframe it as, okay, this is a challenge, but I have the skills to tackle it.
Exactly. It's about shifting from a fear-based mindset to a more growth-oriented one. And it's not about pretending everything is perfect. It's about acknowledging the challenges while also focusing on our ability to navigate them.
I like that, because anxiety often comes from feeling like things are out of our control, right?
Absolutely. So another helpful strategy is to focus on what we can control, setting clear goals, breaking down large tasks into smaller steps, and creating a plan of action can help us feel more empowered and less overwhelmed.
And what about physical techniques, like deep breathing exercises or meditation? Can those help us manage the physiological side of anxiety?
Definitely. Those practices can be incredibly effective for calming our nervous systems and shifting out of that fight or flight response.
It's like giving our bodies a chance to catch up with our minds.
Right. And remember, managing anxiety is an ongoing process. There's no magic bullet. It takes practice and experimentation to find what works best for you.
Yeah, it's a journey.
Hmm.
But the cool thing is, if we can start to see our anxiety as potentially misdirected enthusiasm, it changes the whole conversation.
Exactly. It opens up the possibility that those anxious feelings might actually be a source of energy and motivation if we can just learn to harness them effectively.
This has been a fascinating deep dive. Thank you for sharing your insights with us today.
It's been a pleasure. And to our listeners, I'd leave you with this question. Where in your own life might you be misdirecting your enthusiasm? How can you start to reframe those experiences and channel that energy in a way that serves you?
That's a great question to ponder. Thanks for joining us, everyone. We'll see you next time for another deep dive.